Hi everybody! Today I'm starting a new series of videos about the Cartographer Annual 46 Castle Walls for Campaign Cartographer 3+. In Chapter 1, Tools of the Trade, we'll see how to use the new commands, but also in Part 1, some cool features already existing in CC3+. Modifiers are really cool tools to use with Campaign Cartographer 3+. We start with the most frequently used one, the Endpoint modifier. The button is here, but you can also hit the Function key F5 on your keyboard. To show you how the modifier works, I've created a small macro to place a small circle at the command point. If you want to test it, the text of the macro is in the description below. I just type SMCIR for small circle, and I will next click on the modifier, and then on the left part somewhere on this line segment. If I click on the left part, I get the left endpoint. Modifier again, if I click on the right part, it snaps to the right endpoint of the line segment. It's the same for arcs. Left part, left endpoint. Modifier, right part, right endpoint. So what about path? I use the modifier and click somewhere here. The endpoint should be here. Oops. It doesn't snap to the endpoint of the path, it snaps on the endpoint of this line, which is a part of the path, and not on the endpoint itself. If I click somewhere to the right, it snaps to this node. So with a path, the endpoint modifier snaps to the nearest node of the path and not necessarily on an endpoint. A polygon is after all only a closed path, so it works the same. Nearest node. And what about a circle? A circle has no endpoints, right? So if I click here, oh, I get an endpoint. But if I click with the modifier on here, I get this endpoint. With a circle, the endpoint modifier snaps to the nearest cardinal point, let's say north, east, south, west here. So that's it for the endpoint modifier. Another very useful modifier is the intersection modifier here. Again, you can use your keyboard with the Function key F6 instead of the button. And as a matter of fact, with macros, you must use your keyboard instead of the button. It fails with the button, but works with the keyboard Function key F6. So let's look how it works here. So I use again my macro SMCIR and hit the key F6. The prompt says select an intersection or the first of two entities which intersect. So either I click right on the intersection here, and I need with the macro I need a right click. Don't ask me why. Or F6 again, I select the first entity, then the second entity. So the crossing point would be here if this line segment were longer. With a circle, there are two intersection points here, so it depends where I start with the first selection. So if I click here and then here, it snaps to this intersection point because the first selected point was nearest to this intersection. If I want this intersection point, I need to first select one of the entities near this point and the second anywhere. And even if the line crosses the circle only in one intersection point, if I select the first entity in this vicinity here, I'll get this intersection point even if the line is not crossing. And to get this one, I need to select the line somewhere here, for example, and then the circle. With two circles, it's the same. There are two intersection points here. So if I want this one, the first entity should be selected near this intersection point. For example here, and then anywhere on the second circle. Of course, I can always select exactly here the intersection point, but then I need to right click for the macro to work. And for arcs here, always the same. There are two intersection points. One that can guess somewhere here, and the other must be somewhere here. Not crossing, but again, if I select the line here and the arc here, I get this intersection point. If I select the line here and the arc even here, I get this intersection point. So that's it for the intersection modifier. You can practice yourself. I've copied the text of the macros below. The next modifier I want to show you is the midpoint modifier here. The function key is this time F3. So let's see how it works on these entities here. The macro SNCIR, and I click on the modifier, then near the end of this line segment it snaps to the midpoint. Modifier, arc, it snaps to the midpoint. With a path, it snaps to the midpoint of the lined element of the path. Like the endpoint modifier, it only considers the line element of the path where I clicked on. It's the same for the polygon. And a circle doesn't really have a midpoint. A circle has a center point, but if I click on it with this modifier, I get the leftmost point. Even if I click anywhere else, I still get the leftmost points. Let's look at the center modifier, function key F4, and how it works with our entities here. So I load the macro SNCIR, center modifier. A line segment should not have a center, however, it snaps to the midpoint. Now what about an arc? Here we got the center of the arc, the real center of the arc, and not the midpoint. What about a path? I've got this point, and it's the very center of all the nodes of the path. For the polygon, it's the same. It's the very center. For a polygon, you can also say it's the gravity center here. And for a circle, naturally, it's the center of the circle. The on modifier ensures that the target point is dead on the entity. So let's see how it works with the macro. On modifier, line segment, dead on. On modifier, arc. On modifier, path, and so on. The last modifier button is the perpendicular modifier. Function key F12. Now, to see how it works, the best entity to draw is a line. So I start a line anywhere, then click on the modifier and select an entity. I cannot move from the perpendicular line. With a polygon, it's the same. I start a line and choose it to be perpendicular to this part of the polygon. What about a circle now? There's no lines. How can a line be perpendicular to a circle? I start my line, use the perpendicular tool, and whoops, doesn't seem to be correlated to the circle. But here, the center point of the circle and a radius that has been a bit shortened. So I start again, click anywhere, perpendicular modifier, and now I use the intersection modifier, or F6, to select the circle exactly at this point. And now look, the line is parallel to this shortened radius. In fact, the line is perpendicular to an invisible tangent line that goes through the selection point. If I choose another selection point, for example here, you'll see that the line will run horizontal, or almost so, at least. So line, perpendicular modifier, and I click here. The line is almost horizontal, the tangent being here. So know what you do if you want to use the perpendicular modifier with a circle. We looked at all the modifiers that are here as buttons, but there is another one that is hidden in Tools, Snaps, and here you see all the modifiers so far: mid, center, endpoint, intersection, nearest point, on, perpendicular, and there is the parallel here. So we see that the function key is F11, there's no button, so we'll use the function key for that. And again, the best tool is a line. So click a point, F11, entity, it runs parallel. Click a point, F11, entity, or side of a polygon here, parallel to this side. What about a circle? Point, F11, circle, a line that is in fact parallel to the tangent at the selection point. And in fact, we can use the modifier to actually draw the tangent line. For example, if I use here my shortened radius, I start my line here at the intersection point of this radius and the circle, and now I use the parallel F11 plus again intersection, radius, circle. And here I have the tangent line at this point that I can lengthen with here the trim command, select, trim, tangent line. That's it for part 1. I hope you enjoyed this video and thanks for watching.